As a rule of thumb, with hypnosis, it's certainly not instant, but it's quite a rapid way of making changes. I've had a lot of inquiries for methamphetamine, but they never turn up. If you can see yourself doing something, then it's much easier to achieve it. His statement is, I am the greatest.
Yes.
It's not, I'm going to be, I will be, I want to be. It's, I am.
Could you hypnotize me so I stop smoking?
And just close your eyes. Just start listening to the sounds in this room. Just let go. Trust your mind. Trust your body. Just going deeper and deeper.
Bang. Welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world. Thank you guys for smashing the subscribe button. It literally costs like 2 seconds and that's it. And it helps us distribute the message and promotes us in the algorithm. So please stop what you're doing right now, smash the subscribe button, and on with the show. I'm joined here today with Tim Thornton, a clinical hypnotherapist who works with a large range of clients, individuals to athletes to people in recovery. And we're going to dive deeper into the mind and dive deeper into our understanding of the subconscious and everything that entails hypnotherapy. So thank you for joining me today, Tim.
Welcome.
I think a good place to start for this conversation is kind of understanding and setting up a framework as to what hypnotherapy really is. Because I think for a lot of people, their understanding of hypnosis is like seeing the pendulum swing back and forth and making people cluck like chickens or end up with their pants down. But as I've come to learn, as we've kind of had discussions about this, it's so much more than that.
Okay, so I suppose there's a general, the difference is the stage hypnosis or entertainment, and then there's clinical hypnosis.
Yeah.
The stage hypnosis, I've never actually been, I've seen a lot of it on TV, but I've never attended a live show. I am interested, and before COVID, I was thinking there are lots of trainings in Las Vegas that you can go over, and I thought it might be fun to kind of see how they do it. But really, it's not my ball at all. It's not my department. Stage hypnosis, the trick is the showmanship, and they make it look like they're just pulling random people out of the audience, but they've actually pre-selected them. So that's the first thing.
Really?
Yeah. So
never would have guessed.
And it's called susceptibility tests. So there are various ones that are used, and they get the most susceptible subject or people that they can on stage to make good. And the people have got to want to be up there as well, you know. And then you get a good show.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then is there kind of like a prerequisite as to someone's ability to be hypnotized? Like, is there a spectrum of...
Yeah, there is a spectrum. There are... the most susceptible people are called somnambulists, and they're kind of 1 in 50 or something like that. And I've had a few through my doors as clients, and you've got to be very, very careful. I am careful with whatever I say to my clients, whether they're in hypnosis or not, because suggestions are very powerful. For instance, if you go and see a doctor and he says something that worries you, you could go away for 6 months worrying about that thing the doctor told you. Do you know what I mean? It's a suggestion that can kind of cause problems. So... but a somnambulist is someone that you can literally just click your fingers and they're in trance.
Really?
Yeah. And
is that a genetic thing, or is that
I think it must be. To be honest with you, I haven't looked into the reasons why. They're not stupid people.
Yeah.
They're completely intelligent, normal people. But they're very, very susceptible.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other extreme on the spectrum, people that just can't, they don't seem to get, well, it sounds horrible, but they don't seem to have any imagination. So if I say to them, get a sense or a feeling that you're walking into a hospital, you can see, even with their eyes closed, that they're kind of frowning and they don't really get it.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. I'm gonna have a...
No, that's okay. You can run photos, but you don't have to do it the whole time.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, human beings, as we've come to evolve and understand the brain and the neurological pathways and how the brain actually works, which to this day is still quite a mystery.
It is, yeah.
When you look at the trillions of neurons that we have active in our brain and how they're all intertwining and reacting in certain ways and there's pathways that our brain is far more comfortable in taking and other ways that we don't, and that's where you see like memories fade or skills fade. I can't remember who said it, but it was someone's like it was along the lines of the neurons that you continue to use are the neurons that are going to strengthen and grow.
Yes.
And
the others
I've butchered that.
Redundant.
Yeah, exactly. I've butchered that 100%, but the underlying message still stands that, I think much like being able to complete algebra or being able to quote a scientific equation, there's probably a neurological pathway that allows for things like creativity, things like imagination, that activates within certain parts of the brain.
Yeah.
So if one person's more inclined to use the logical part of the brain, then I would be right in stating that they're less likely to be hypnotized.
Not necessarily. I mean, I work in the CBD, so a lot of my clients come straight from their workplace, and I get a lot of people that are in finance or in law, for instance. So they're very logical people, and they're all over the spectrum in terms of susceptibility.
Right.
But I must say that people like accountants, I kind of always put a little mark down there because I think, oh dear, because it's number crunching. And I'm not saying that all accountants don't have imagination, but the logical process can sometimes, it's in all of their life. It's not just what they do at work. So they tend to be super logical.
And you could also make the case that people that are super logical are going to be more compelled to pursue careers like accounting or careers in very number-based.
Yeah, science-based. Yeah. But then, there's no hard and fast rule. Yeah.
So is there a way of testing? Like if people were at home wondering how susceptible they were to be hypnotized, is there a way of checking it out? Or
well, there's a couple of ways. The way I work with it is that I make an assumption that if someone, you see, I operate a service, and if there's someone out there that has got a problem, and somehow the information has got to them that hypnosis might be, or hypnotherapy might be a solution, so that means they want to change. They've taken the time to do a bit of research, even if it's 2 minutes on Google, and then they might make a phone call and ask me some questions, or they might just book in on, excuse me, or they might just book in online. So when what I'm saying is they've actually arrived with an open mind and wanting to change, and that's enough, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of therapy, that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So in your line of work, what have like the results that you've seen that kind of stand out to you? Because like you said before, people come to you with a large range of issues, right? Some people want to quit smoking, some people want to sleep better, some people want to enhance their athletic performance. So do you have any anecdotes or any stories that stand out to you?
Well, look, I mean, I'm classified as a generalist, so I don't work with everything, but saying that, it's a fairly broad spectrum that I do work with. So there is addiction, and amongst that addiction is nicotine or smoking addiction. Now you see, this is where it kind of goes, it opens up a bit, because with addiction, not necessarily smoking tobacco, but with other addictions, alcohol, drugs, most drugs outside of nicotine, there's a rule of thumb that behind every addiction is a trauma. So then you're really working with getting to the root of the trauma. Where did it Where did it start in the person's life, and why are they carrying it on? Why they're basically self-medicating.
Yeah.
So you see that whole area with trauma and addiction and so on is very interesting. I do like working with smokers because I like it when they come in and they say, look, I've been smoking for 20 years. I really want to give up. It's terrible. My kids want me to give it up, but I just can't. And they give up, so that's it's kind of interesting. They've made a decision, but their conscious mind can't do it for them.
Is it instant?
Most of the time it is, yeah. Sometimes they have to come back. And for some reason, it seems to be with smoking nicotine, that's how it works. With alcohol, it's usually more of a process, but you get very fast results that way as well. As a rule of thumb, with hypnosis, it's certainly not instant, but it's quite a rapid way of making changes.
I see. And so are there certain stages that you'll walk someone through, or is it just... Because I imagine when someone comes into your clinic, they are coming in with a lot of momentum. They're coming in with a long day of work and probably stressed out, and they're living a family life. So to take someone from that state to a state where they're open to suggestions and open to being able to be hypnotized and then essentially reprogram their thought process.
Yeah.
How do you take them from point A to point B?
It's a good question. So, look, the clinic is a clinic. It's just a nice space with a couple of comfortable chairs in it. And so first of all, I have to listen to the client and introduce myself and so on, listen to their story and understand what it is they want to get from the hypnotherapy. And then I basically ask their permission, do you want to do some hypnosis now? And so they're kind of in the driver's seat to a point. And then the lead into the hypnotic state is called an induction. So this is what the hypnotherapist does. And you induct the client into this state. And as you said, someone's just come from work, or it might be a lunchtime, so they're kind of in a bit of a hurry, but they respond very well. The comfortable chair, it's all, it's low key in the space, so there's nothing. It's not a completely silent environment, but it's quite peaceful, and because it sounds like a generalization, but most people are suffering some sort of degree of stress. When you lead them into this place, they go into the parasympathetic side of the nervous system and they just start relaxing. Their breathing slows down. You can see it. You can just look at their chest, and there's also a pulse you can quite often see. On some people, it's very obvious, kind of in this part of the throat, and you can see it slowing down, and they're becoming more and more relaxed. And there is a little, it's actually, I think it was taught to me ages ago, but it's a simple thing where you say, and after a little bit of dialogue, you say, and just notice how relaxed you are feeling and how you're slowing down breathing, and notice how your eyes feel so good closed. And now I want you to relax your eyes more and more. And I want you to relax your eyes to the point where they just don't work. And there's a little bit more to it, but within a minute you say to them, and now when you know that your eyes are so relaxed, why don't you try and open them? And this is a test that I do for my clients, and 70% of them you can see they're struggling to open their eyes. There's another 30% that will be able to open their eyes, but that's kind of like a genuine statistic. It's about 70% of people just are there. They want to be there, and they're there.
Yeah, especially if they come with a pre-existing condition that they want to be hypnotized.
That's right.
Can you just check there we go. Especially if they come in with that pre-existing desire to be hypnotized, I imagine that they would be a lot more.
And quite often, I don't prey on this at all, but they can be, I don't like using the word, but there's a desperation. You know, they've tried everything.
Sorry, Sam, that's way too blown out now.
Is that me?
No, it's. I think you touched something. That's better. Okay. Yep.
I quite often hear them say, you know, this is my last chance. You know, I've tried everything, and I really want to be able to sleep better. So they've got this. The desire is strong to find a solution. And the solution can be an improvement up to, I mean, if we're talking about poor sleep patterns or insomnia, you know, if someone's getting 2 extra hours a night, they're quite happy.
Yeah, of course, especially that sleep pathway, because it's so important for the rest of your health. It probably sounds obvious, but I didn't realize how much sleep was really affecting the rest of my day until I got like a proper night's sleep. And it was only a couple of nights ago. My phone happened to have died and I couldn't recharge it anywhere. So I just had to go to bed without my phone. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I have not felt like this in years. And I guess it's kind of stating the obvious in that sense, but it's not until you experience it that you really understand it. Because I spent an ungodly amount of time on my phone. I'm constantly writing emails, constantly texting people, constantly uploading content, checking content. And to get that 3-4 hour break away from that, it really enhanced my sleeping ability.
Well, as you said, you're a product of the times, and like most people, were overstimulated. So even if you're watching a movie, you kind of reach for your phone and just check something on your phone, and you've got 2 inputs coming in, and you've got this blue screen in your face, you know, which isn't helping you with your sleep, and everything's lit up in the head. So there's a huge, I mean, this is probably the bread and butter of what I do. Behind a lot of these issues that people come in to see me for, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. Yeah. I'm not saying it's all due to phones, but that's just another contributing element.
Well, I don't believe our human brains have evolved to the point where we can digest all this information. Someone put it to it so eloquently. They said social media has become the fast food of information. It's cheap and easy to access, but it does horrible things for you. And I think particularly now when we're looking at shorter form content such as, you know, TikTok or Instagram Reels or 2 to 3 minute YouTube videos, which we've become accustomed to and we really enjoy, we're seeing a far more severe byproduct from that, in which attentions are definitely being shortened. People's ability to retain information is being shortened. I mean, I went to the movies with Sian the other day, and we were watching, I can't remember, it's probably Top Gun or something like that, like a very stimulating, exciting, I think it was Spider-Man actually, and we're watching this really action-packed, stimulating, you know, roller coaster of a movie, right? Where CGI is everywhere and everything's exploding. And I look over to him halfway through and he's just scrolling through his TikTok feed. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Well, it's true. I some time ago, I went to IMAX, and there's this very steep seating arrangement, you know, because so everyone can see the screen. And there's this 3D dinosaur coming towards all of us, but in my peripheral vision, I can see 100 telephone screens underneath me. Everyone's on their screen. Yeah, you know, I love movies, and I sometimes think, I'll watch some old movie like Lawrence of Arabia or something. Yeah. But I can't actually watch it because the editing is so slow now. Yeah. And you've got these scenes that go on for sort of 30 seconds, and I'm used to the faster cuts in editing. And so I don't think it's a good thing. We've really got the same physiology and psychology as cavemen, you know, so this is... nothing's changed, you know, nothing's really evolved for thousands of years. I don't believe, you know, there would be other people out there that disagree with that statement, but we're basically the same creatures that we were all those years ago. So And I think that we are under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
We're over-informed all the time.
Well, considering we are top of the food chain, it puts a lot less evolutionary pressure on human beings to evolve in a biological format. What we're doing now is evolving the technology, making the technology better and developing more stimulating content and creating more accessible AI, creating, improving tools. But us as ourselves aren't really changing that much. We're not growing extra limbs. We're not improving our eyesight because there's no need for it. There's no evolutionary pressure for it. We're all for the most part, and I know there's going to be people who aren't in this situation, but the odds are if you are accessing the internet and able to watch this podcast, then the odds are you're living a somewhat comfortable life.
That's right. And, behind all of this is... it is an addiction because it's sort of a dopamine addiction, so we get these little hits of a dopamine. Every time you look at Facebook or Instagram, you get these little boosts, little rewards, you see. So
have you had people come up to you asking you to help them with their phone addiction or their social media addiction?
I've had mothers come in with their young one, teenagers, but it is funny because the teenager will be on the phone when they come in, and the mother's telling me what she wants to happen, and there's this kid kind of, staring at his phone, and he doesn't want to stop, so it won't work, you see. Yeah. It doesn't matter if mum wants him to stop. It's the addictions generally that I seem to deal with is tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, cocaine. Right. And I've had a lot of inquiries for methamphetamine, but they never turn up. So they actually pay a deposit and say they're coming in next week, and I wait and the door never opens and they never arrive. So I think that's just something about they probably genuinely want to give the drug up, but they can't even kind of find that space to get in to see someone, because of the nature of that particular drug.
Yeah, some of the addictions that do exist are so chemically profound. And so, look, I don't think anyone goes into drugs hoping to get hooked on meth. I think it's just kind of a concurrent occurrence as you step from one to the other. They get rewired,
burn, they literally, it's a big subject, but from a neural point of view, they're kind of overloaded, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently spoke to Tanya de Jong from Mind Medicine Australia. Okay. And her
what does she do?
So she's the CEO of a large range of companies, to be honest. And one of them is a charity that's looking to push the use of psilocybin and MDMA as a form of therapy and as a form of alleviating people. I think particularly it was focused around PTSD and stress
and depression.
And depression. And smoking as well, I believe, actually. Considering you do work in this kind of space, and although you don't necessarily deal with psychedelics, do you see room for alternative medicines such as psychedelics to be used?
Personally, I do. Yeah. I'm not qualified or licensed to do that type of stuff, but it's I believe the potential's there. Yeah. And that it kind of leads into a whole a very interesting area, but I won't go there unless you want to. But I think it is definitely. You see, as people living today in where we live in this part of the world, if we do have a problem, let's say someone's got anxiety, what do? You go and see a doctor. He'll probably prescribe you something, a pharmaceutical, or he'll send you to a psychologist who will then do the same thing, or a psychiatrist who will do the same thing. So that's your kind of standard way of dealing with things. Hypnotherapy is an alternative to these options, and using microdosing with psychedelics and so on is another option, and it's really up to the person.
Of course, and I just think I'm really excited that I'm living in a generation right now that's opening up those avenues to things like hypnotherapy, things like psychedelic assisted therapies, that these conversations are no longer taboo and that we can have them, because, you know, as you can imagine, throughout the 50s and 60s, that wasn't the case.
That's right.
It was completely outlawed. There was a huge stigma around it, and it was seen as a criminal offense. And now we're kind of evolved past that point as a society to say, you know, okay, what are the possible benefits from this? You know, what are the possible benefits from hypnotherapy, for example, right? To kind of steer us back onto track now, we were talking initially about the induction. So it's that soothing process and really allowing someone to, like, you described it as closing their eyes and then not being able to open their eyes again, or not wanting to open their eyes.
Yeah, that's an aspect. That's a part of the induction. So it's really, I suppose, without, you know, you've got to experience it, but it's a kind of an invitation to relax and to relax deeply. And once you get into the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is where the conscious mind can kind of have a little vacation, if you like, then we can communicate with the subconscious mind.
Right.
And this is where all your habits, patterns, learnings, memories are, you see. So this makes sense where someone's who's been smoking since they were 14, and now they're coming in to see me at 34, so they've been smoking for 20 years, and now they might be becoming a father or a mother or something. They really want to give up. And when you can connect with the subconscious mind, something else happens. So it's not this tussle in the head with, you know, I know I want to go up, but I'll just have one more. You know, they just stop like that. So it's quite interesting.
And so once you do tap into that parasympathetic nervous system, are you then leaving suggestions? Are you directly telling them that they're not going to smoke anymore?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. So it's definitely suggestions. But
what would a suggestion sound like? Like if let's say I was in a trance right now.
Okay, that's a good question. So, I mean, I'm trying to getting it back onto the quit smoking thing. I might say, if I was working with you, Luca, I might say, and you're in trance, I'll say, are you ready to give up smoking now, Luca? And you say, yes, and because you do, and you want to. And are you going to give up smoking forever? And because the subconscious mind, and I like this definition, it's like an intelligent 10-year-old or like a genius 10-year-old. So it takes everything very literally. And when you get someone into that space, you're making these changes, and it does work very well. So the suggestion, it's just like when you're out with your friends and you say, well, or you with your brother yesterday, it's a cold day. Let's go and see the new Top Gun, you know, the Maverick or whatever with Tom Cruise. That's a suggestion. And you're in the mood, you've got a few hours to kill, and off you go and do it. You know, so it's the same thing in hypnotherapy.
So it's almost like you don't want to be so direct that you take them out of the trance, but almost make it, you're leading them down a certain set of ideas. Yes,
there are certain, I mean, I'm right now, the way I'm talking with you is I'm the speed that I'm talking and the tone of my voice isn't conducive for good hypnosis. So everything's kind of brought down a few notches, and there can be quite big gaps in between sentences or suggestions. And people quite often wake up and say, how long have I been under? And I say, 40 minutes. And they go, I thought it was 10 minutes, or I thought it was 4 hours or something. So time is distorted, and reference points are blurred. So it's not voodoo or black magic. It's just an altered state of consciousness. And we go in and out of these states during the day anyway.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that because I'm not sure if you're familiar, but the people at home probably are. I had an MMA fighter come in here and essentially just strangle me until I fell unconscious, right? Professionally, of course.
In a nice way.
But I remember firstly feeling like my brain was shutting down very slowly, almost like a computer program, step by step by step. And then when I kind of came to again, it had felt like 20 minutes had passed. I was so convinced, I didn't even question it. I thought, oh, wow, we've got like a lot of content to edit out and we're going to have to touch this up, whatever. And I came to when we finished the podcast and it was fun and we all laughed about it and whatever. And then when I was looking over the footage, I think maybe like 2 days later, I was shocked to see it was only like 3 seconds maybe. And so that perception of time is so strange. You know, when you are in that unconscious state.
That's right.
I think probably for the people listening, the closest you can attest to it at home is when you have a dream, you know, it feels so much longer than what it really is.
Yeah. And sometimes when not so much on a phone or whatever, but if you, maybe on that as well, but if you jump on your laptop to do some work and you're kind of sitting there for a while, you kind of think, look, 2 hours have gone by, but it feels like 20 minutes because your focus is on something else, you see.
So if we're able to hone in our focus on one singular task, are we putting ourselves in a hypnotic state?
Yes, like driving. You know, when you drive, say, from here to Canberra, especially at night, and you're just focused on driving safely and overtaking properly and everything, you've also got those white lines flashing by at night, which also have a tendency to kind of get you off as well. But that's a different state. Children can do it easily. You know, they go into daydreams quite easily. And this is where we're susceptible. This is where suggestions come in. This is why nowadays it's changed, but when you watch TV, the commercials, they're very effective because you're in a different state.
I see.
You're more suggestible. Excuse me.
No, that's okay. So if that's the case then, and if we are finding ourselves, although less now than previously,
manipulated, you see, within, I don't want to get into kind of conspiratorial territory, but human beings are very easily manipulated.
Yeah.
Not by me, but generally with, you know, everything else that goes on.
Yeah, well, dare I say the C word, but I mean, we saw it over the past 2 years.
Yes, the C word, exactly.
And, you know, it was strange to see how different groups and different cultures of people reacted to that circumstance so differently. You know,
it is a mass hypnosis.
It was a mass hypnosis. And, you know, there were certain people that attended to the government guidelines and the government rules and everything that Gladys Berejiklian said was law. And you had to stand by that. And then you had the complete counterculture of that, which were equally as hypnotized and equally as malleable to say the whole thing's a hoax and the whole thing's a lie. And then you've got this weird group of people in the middle, like, what's going on? You know? Do you think that's stems from our need for tribes? Do you think as human beings we need to have teams, and so we just look for commanding leaders that can manipulate masses?
I think there's something to that. I think that that's part of what it is. I think also at the moment, and I didn't bring any information with me, but I can remember a little bit of it, that basically there's a huge percentage of the population, especially in the first world, which we're part of, there's no real meaning to their lives anymore. You know, they don't, it sounds like a horrible thing, but it's sort of over 40% of people really don't feel, they don't know what they're doing with their lives.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I hear a lot of
they're
anecdotes.
kind of adrift. So any suggestions that come along, they're going to take them on board. This is not, I don't think you're going to use this, you'll cut this out, but I'll send you a very interesting, it's a podcast, but it's a Belgian psychologist, and this is called mass formation.
Right.
And it's been used before. It's been, recent times, or it doesn't sound like very recent times now, but it's used all the time. But the key places where it comes up in a big way was definitely in the Second World War, the Nazi Party.
Yeah, I was going to come to that.
And also in Stalinist Russia and so on. It's a way of... People believe the most incredible things, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So do you think there's more responsibility on media and media outlets then to not... like to be more nuanced with the information they provide and not try and stimulate or not try and essentially put people into a mass hypnosis?
Well, I think that's the point of media, is to put people under a mass hypnosis, and because you've got to look behind, where does the money, who's putting the money up for the media, and, there's a vested interest in getting the mass of people to go in a certain way.
Yeah.
So, look, it's a massive subject, and I'm an observer of all of this. I'm not an expert of it all, but because of the work I do, I can see how it's panning out. Where our minds are swayed by. You were talking about algorithms and so on, and what is running all these platforms now? Is it human beings, or is it algorithms and AI? And you make a little click on somewhere, you're looking for a pair of shoes, and then everything, the next 2 weeks, every time you click on your phone, you've got adverts for shoes, Yeah. So there's ways of pushing you towards things,
Yeah, it's definitely fueled by capitalism and the desire for people to advertise and consume. Which, I have wavering opinions on that. I tend to change my mind every other day, because in some essence, as stupid as it sounds, having ads that relate to me, I kind of like. Do you know what I mean? Because there might actually be some utility in what they're selling.
There might be something useful.
Yeah, like I'm planning a trip to Fiji in the next couple months. And so having ads for accommodation and whatnot actually might provide some utility as well. But I think coming from a Western perspective and a Western standpoint, there's also a natural kind of distrust of government, and there's a natural distrust of major corporations. Like, I can't tell you why, I just don't want Mark Zuckerberg having access to all my messages and all my emails and all my posts. And I know that there's 3 billion users on Facebook, and I know that the chances of him narrowly selecting my content to just go over is very razor thin, but I just don't like that they have that ability to do so. And
That's right. And it's all saved as well. This information apparently doesn't get kind of deleted.
Oh no, absolutely not. Whereas I think when you look at more Eastern communities and more Asian specific countries, there tends to be a lot more tolerance of such.
Definitely.
There tends to be a lot more openness to giving information to the government, and they have systems in China like a social credit score and mass security and mass surveillance, and they accept it. It's from a Western perspective, we look at that and go, oh, that's disgusting, how could you do that? But what's the population of China, like 2 billion? Could you find out? Could you quickly Google that for me? But whatever billion amount of people are in China, in one way or another, have gone along with that narrative for X amount of years now.
Well, yeah, I did hear somewhere that the difference between, somewhere, a country like China and a Western country, or the Western countries, is that China tells their people that this is what they're doing. Yeah. And everyone goes along with it because they seem to be quite very obedient to their government.
More susceptible to suggestion, maybe?
Exactly. And but in the West, the same thing happens, but we're not told. It's not open.
Right.
So as you said, everything, every entry, every key stroke you've put into your computer is recorded.
Yeah.
But it's kind of done more surreptitiously.
1.4 billion.
1.4 billion. So there you go. With a population of 1.4 billion to essentially control that behavior in a way that's streamlined and efficient. And, you know, it has, in some ways, there's a lot of upside to it. You know, from a Western society, we don't like to acknowledge that it exists, but, you know, economically speaking, there's definitely an upper hand to those kinds of systems in terms of, you know, industries such as renewable energy. China leads the way. They're definitely at the forefront of that. However, you have to also consider the humanitarian aspect, and you have to consider people's independence and their ability to choose and their freedoms. And it becomes such murky waters very quickly. You know, it's not clean cut.
But it comes down to trust again. Do you trust the government, basically? And, I trust the government.
I will go on record and say that I do not. I do not. Okay, to bring us back from that tangent. Okay, let's talk sports. Because a lot of the people that listen to this show, I think the vast majority are either MMA fighters or MMA fans, or I'm sure there's a lot of bodybuilders that listen to this now. And one of the reasons why I really enjoy this show and really enjoy doing what I do is because I get to surround myself with people that are high achievers and that are striving for more, that have purpose. You know, you referenced before that there's a 40% population of people right now that don't have a purpose. And that's unfortunate, and that is a real thing, and we can go into that as well if you like, but at the moment I'd just like to focus on the people that are striving to be the best of the best, and if not that, then be the best that they possibly can be. What potential upside can hypnosis offer to those people?
All right. Well, look, with sport, there are some key things here that with all athletes, and so I don't know whether I know that Mike Tyson doesn't like to be referred to as an athlete, but I find it.
Doesn't he?
No, he says I'm not an athlete. I'm a fighter.
Okay.
So he's very specific on that, but I'm going to include all fighters of all those different disciplines and all athletes and golfers and whoever.
Mike Tyson, we apologise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. I love you. But what I was going to say was, obviously there's a huge physical component, but really the most important thing is the mindset.
Yeah.
So someone like Tiger Woods, who's, I don't have to sell his skills, but he apparently, and it's good, I like to hear it, that when he's going to do a tournament, he sees every day, he sees his hypnotherapist.
Really?
And this is just going to give him, it's kind of fine, it's a little bit like the lenses on your cameras, it's fine focusing his concentration and his drive and so on.
Yeah. I mean, Tiger Woods has that very specific story about how he noticed a minuscule inefficiency in his golf swing. And this was when he was winning PGAs and winning tournaments and was at the top of his game. And he took 2 years off to fine tune that swing to get that top 2% more efficient, and came back even stronger and even better. So he's obviously, I mean, everyone by now knows this, but he's obviously elite of the elite athlete
he's the top
that's
of the
willing
top,
to do so. But perhaps in more general terms, if like, first, have you dealt with a fighter or someone that's competed in some form of martial arts before?
Yes, I've got a young gentleman seeing me at the moment who does jiu-jitsu at a certain level. I don't know what level it is, but it's within Australia, and he takes it very seriously. And funnily enough, he's also he uses microdosing and so on.
That's very common in jiu-jitsu.
So he gets something from it. You know, he gets some sort of advantage.
And so in that case, are you speaking more towards reprogramming the mentality to make them a better athlete, or are you still working through certain traumas and bad habits? Like, what are you trying?
It could be all of that, depending on who I'm dealing with and what's going on with them, but also being able to see themselves win, you know. So I remember years ago, before I'd even started working within hypnosis, there was I was into rock climbing, and there was a competition, and the Russian team, they would do a climb with ropes and tying off and doing it all kind of safely, and they'd probably do that twice, and then they'd visualize doing it about 3 times a day. And then they do it without any ropes. They free climb it, and they got amazing results, you know. But no one else was doing that method at the time. And seeing, if you can see yourself doing something, then it's much easier to achieve it.
Yeah.
And one of the ways of going with hypnosis is, again, it's a suggestion, but it's the client seeing themselves. It might not even be with sport. It could be, I'm trying to think of something else. It could be a career, you know, seeing yourself in a certain position in the company, or delivering a presentation and it going well, and so on.
Having that underlying belief that it is possible, and that you have, I guess there's probably a lot of strength, and I don't want to deviate too deeply into topics of law of attraction or spirituality, because that's a whole different tangent, but
it is connected.
It is connected, right? And I do think there is a lot of inherent value in seeing yourself as something that you desire to be, not in a future state, but in a current state, seeing yourself and embodying that top athlete right now. I mean, Mike Tyson historically would get, from the age of 13, would get hypnotized 3 times a day to believe that he was going to be not that he was going to be, that he was the world champion, you know, and he's the youngest person ever to do so. And
that was Mike Tyson, yeah?
Yes, that was Mike Tyson.
So if you go another generation back, or at least another generation back, Muhammad Ali, his statement is, I am the greatest.
Yes.
It's not I'm going to be, I will be, I want to be. It's I am.
Yes.
The I am statement is very powerful. It is part of manifesting, and it doesn't just have to be with sport. It can be with anything. But you see, the subconscious mind, it's successful by nature, and it will deliver success. But there's this kind of very interesting, simple thing, is that quite often people tend to focus on what they don't want, what's not going right in their life. They focus on this and they get more of it. But if you are focusing on what you do like, and you are focusing on what you want to achieve, you get that, you see. So it's very simple to make the mistake, and I actually make it myself sometimes as well. But it's just focusing on what you want, not what you don't want, because it's back to this intelligent genius 10-year-old. You know, it can get what it wants, but you've got to be focused on it, you see.
Yeah, and that's I'm a firm believer in anchors. I think anchors are a very powerful tool for people who aren't aware. Anchors are essentially where you associate a very strong state of emotion to a physical thing. So, you know, boxers, for example, might hit their gloves 2 times, and that to them means they're ready. And it's not just that you start doing that one day, but you put yourself in a high state of confidence, in a high state of conviction, a high state of certainty, and then you just repetitively hit the gloves. And so subconsciously in your mind, you as soon as you hit the gloves, it's an anchor back to that emotion, and then you get into that emotion a lot easier. There's a list of athletes and, that have been able to do it. Mine personally is the bang, welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world. Like it's a very strong anchor because no matter how much chaos is going out by outside or how much stress is going on in operating an operation, in running an operation like this, or with personal life or personal friends, as soon as I clap my hands and welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world, I'm in the zone. I'm confident. I'm certain. I know what I'm doing.
That's right.
And I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think a lot of people can walk away with that. And
well, you're right. I mean, the thing is, we've got different aspects of our lives, and we've got the mundane stuff where we're going off to the supermarket to buy the groceries and things, and maybe there might be some sort of heavy side to someone's life, something they're dealing with medically or health-wise or something, but then there's a part of our lives that we're working on, and anchors is all part, well, I know it from the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming training that I've done, and anchors are
What is NLP?
Well, NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. So basically, again, it's back to words. Our words are very, very powerful. They're not it's not the only thing, words, but using that example, I just said, Muhammad Ali, I'm the greatest. Okay, but if Muhammad Ali, I mean, he wasn't this, he was an incredible human being, but if he spent his time saying something like, I don't know whether I'm good enough, and there are all those really good boxers out there, and they're probably better than me, he just wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
So it's the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk to other people.
And so is it an actual skill set? Like, is it an actual ability to program your own mind?
There is a skill set, and there's a whole psychology behind it, and there are strategies and so on. And that's part... The differences with NLP is that I'm a member of the NLP Association, and they do very good work, and anyone can join. So the martial artists that you were talking about, if they were interested, they could join this group.
Whereabouts are they based?
I can send you all those details. It's the Australian
I would be interested.
An NLP Association or whatnot. I can't remember the acronym anymore, but they generally don't even bother using it under hypnosis. It's more kind of I call what we're doing now, I call uptime conversation. We're using our conscious mind. The subconscious is there as well, but we're not utilizing it. But with NLP, it's generally using it in this kind of uptime way, in conscious mode, not subconscious. But I use it in the subconscious way as well.
I see. I know Tony Robbins was a very big proponent.
Yeah, he's huge. He's the Mike Tyson of NLP.
Just to give another anecdotal example, I recently paid more attention to the world of bodybuilding because I've had a lot of bodybuilders on recently. And I plan to do so in the future because it's an interesting career path, and there's a whole array of conversation that could exist within that. But one of the characters that really stood out to me in this sport and to a lot of people was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And what he really figured out and what he really tapped into was that when you're on stage and when you're presenting to the entire world and you've got opponents from all over the world that have been hand selected to be there, the difference in the size of your bicep or the definition of your shoulder isn't what's going to get you over the line. What really is going to be is your stage presence and your confidence and your ability to just look comfortable on stage, which is so counter to what we would expect from bodybuilders, because when we see bodybuilders on stage, we see them squeezing, grunting. It looks very uncomfortable. But Arnold had this very distinct and unique ability to really take his time on stage and really make it his own and really soak it all in. And because of that, I think just as human beings, our eye just naturally gravitate towards that. So we take more time to appreciate the physique that he achieved and the more time to admire the body that he had created, you know. And I think that's really what he tapped into. And it comes back to that, you know, words have power and that, you know, I am the greatest bodybuilder. I am, you know, the best. And he would go around and congratulate his opponents for coming second and third. Like he would call out what position that they would come. And morally that must be so defeating, knowing that 6-time Mr. Olympia just congratulated you on being third when you're going for that top spot.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we're throwing up names. These are the kind of the giants, aren't they? But he's a very affable, likable character, and I don't know whether or not he intentionally knew what he was doing, or whether that was just his way. You know? Yeah,
you know, for some people it just comes more naturally, and I think you can just smell that on a person, I guess. Okay, to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
Is there an increased level of risk, or is there any kind of possible side effects as a result of hypnosis? Like, could someone walk out of the situation perhaps in a worse state than what they walked into?
So that's a very good question, and I believe in the way I was trained. I work in a very safe way, and but saying that the worst thing that can happen is nothing. So, for instance, let's go back to, people always say, "Oh, quit smoking's like a nothing part of hypnosis," but it is significant. But someone might come in with a serious smoking habit and nothing changes, so it didn't get worse. With the trauma and so on, the way I work, it's a psychotherapeutic approach. It's very non-destructive. It's very safe and simple way of, it is using regression techniques and discovering where the trauma began in someone's life. Because, for instance, say, give you a potted version of what can happen is that someone's growing up. Let's talk, the client's 40, okay? And when they were 12 or 13, this thing happened in their life. The trauma happened in their life. They dealt with that trauma like a 12 or 13-year-old, understandably. But later on in their life, when they get triggered again, it's like the anchor that you were talking about. They go back and even as a 40-year-old, they start behaving like a 12 or a 13-year-old, and that has problems.
Of course.
So it's not the trick, but the method is to go back and explore that time. And it sounds very woo-woo, but I'm 100% confident how it works.
Well, traditional therapy works in similar ways, where you lie down on a couch and you revisit past traumas or past experiences, and you really get to the root of that. So I think they kind of lend to each other. Yeah.
But you can change your present life by repairing something in the past. That's what I was going to say.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Have you ever been put in a position where you've worked on someone with more severe, I don't want to say mental issues, maybe disabilities? So people like on the autism spectrum, or people with Down syndrome. Like, what have you had that experience, or are you aware of what that experience would be like?
I do have a rule with myself that if I don't feel qualified or if I don't have the skill set for someone, then I'll say to them I'm not the right person.
Right.
So that might have eliminated some of these things. But someone with Down syndrome, for instance, they're usually they're usually cared for, so but in my experience, no one with Down syndrome has ever come through the door. Mental health issues, I've had people with, they're medicated, but they've got bipolar or schizophrenia or something. And I also get a letter from their mental health expert, but we've got good results, so because there is a bit of a mental health epidemic going on out there. We talk about the pandemic of the C word, but there's a lot of stress and anxiety and depression in society, and hypnotherapy can be very useful for that.
Yeah. For people who don't necessarily have access to hypnotherapy immediately, but they do want to start improving their own mental health, do you have any recommendations?
Well, it would only be my experience. One description, I can't remember the lady's name. She's the most successful hypnotherapist in the world, and I figured out why she's got that title. It's because she has produced a lot of products, a lot of recorded products. So basically, you can go online and buy an MP3 of hers and work on whatever issue you got. So she's made an awful lot of money. She's based in the States. But that's beside the point. The point is that she made a statement that hypnotherapy is meditation with a goal. And I would say that if anyone, I'm not fond of medication. So if looking into meditation, breathing exercises and these sort of things, looking into resetting the vagus nerve and
the vagus nerve.
Yeah, it's a part of, it's a nerve that can kind of get out of whack. I'm not promoting him here. I'm nothing to do with him. But Wim Hof, the ice baths and the breathing, all of these things. These are great.
I'm a huge proponent of the ice baths. I have them all the time before podcasts, after a lot of study, because I think it was Andrew Huberman. He's a neuroscientist and he does a lot of YouTube content. And what he essentially laid out was that after very long, intensive periods of focus, the best way to optimize your brain to retain that information or retain, that essence of information is a peak in adrenaline. So it's recommended that you don't have coffee before you study, but after you study, because you get that spike in adrenaline. And he said one of the most effective and historically renowned ways of doing so is having a cold shower, because a cold shower, if you haven't had one before, they spike your adrenaline. And so I do think there's a lot of overlap there with Wim Hof, and then in periods of meditation as well. I'm sure you're familiar with holotropic breathing as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting just how we can tap into these different states of mind. And yeah, I'm a huge proponent of meditation. Like I genuinely do believe in it.
All the common thing, and there's a lot, I'm not saying I know everything about this at all, but all of these things send you into the parasympathetic side of the autonomic nervous system. And this is where you're in relax and repose mode.
Right.
And this is where we have more potential. If you're in the other side, which is the sympathetic side, this is the adrenal side, where you're really thinking like a rodent. and it's all stimulus response. And this is why when we're on our phones and we've been for hours on something or other, we're kind of, I sometimes watch people, especially younger people, how quickly they can thumb away.
I can see one
look,
right now.
Doing it over there.
He's doing it right now.
The sound technician's on his phone, and but it's normal now. And their fingers and thumbs like a blur, and there's a lot of adrenal action going on. So.
What are your thoughts on the future of technology in that case then? Because there's been this huge shift to not only adopt these technologies and adopt the internet, but then literally put it into our brain. I'm referencing a lot of the work Mr. Elon Musk, with Neuralink, and we've obviously got...
My personal opinion is Elon Musk should go to Mars and he should put his chips in his own head. I think it's... I mean, look, I'm a very different generation to you. Some of it could be very exciting, if you've got some sort of genetic health problem or something. If you could, they apparently now might be able to, let's say someone's got a heart disease, they can take some DNA from you and they can 3D build a heart, possibly, This kind of thing is super exciting, but I think the only people who would benefit to begin would be the very wealthy that could afford all of this, but ultimately everyone else could get hold of it at some stage. But then you're kind of, it seems like you're kind of edging into this world, and what's it called? I'm interested in it. It's the kind of the next stage of human evolution where we become interfaced with machinery and technology, and it's predicted, and I think we've predicted it for ourselves. There are lots of authors out there. The one I'm always referred to is Philip K. Dick, who wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That was adapted to the film Blade Runner. He was a man, getting back to the psychedelics, he was a man that basically had LSD on his cornflakes, and he explored hallucinogenic drugs. And
we call them astronauts.
But he was very, very prophetic. And I think this is what's coming.
Do you think there could potentially be an overlap with this up and coming technology and the domain that you work in? Kind of like we were referencing before with that top hypnotherapist in the world, where she's gone and taken her craft and then been able to scale it by selling a bunch of MP3s and I assume a bunch of YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know if you have much experience with VR, but essentially what it is, it's this headset that you put on over your eyes, and it's extremely stimulating. We did it on the podcast once where we actually did an ayahuasca trip whilst having these VR headsets on. And I was skeptical at first, but after immersing myself into it, I was like, wow, like for where the technology is right now, I know that wasn't an ayahuasca trip, but I have a much better idea of what to expect if I ever was to do one. So do you think there's potential in which we could program the technology to almost put ourselves into states of self-hypnosis and then work through that trauma?
Okay, so there's a couple of things here. I mean, first of all, self-hypnosis is very achievable. So you don't need to wait for technology. You can, it's kind of a hybrid version of meditation, if you like. So you can work on yourself and work on issues or goals that you want to do using hypnosis and various other methods. So that's already happening. But yeah, look, again, it's one of the Philip K. Dick stories, and it's people that live in these the bodies live in a kind of a life pod that are regulated and looked after by machinery, so you get all the nutrients and oxygen and everything that you need, and your life is kind of artificial, that you're living this artificial reality, but it
almost
seems
like
real.
a simulation or a metaverse.
To me, it sounds like a nightmare, to be honest. But I think my life is very good, and I don't want to be in any sort of simulation or.
No, I agree with you on that. Unfortunately, I just think it is an inevitability, and
Possibly.
I think maybe on a deeper level, that's why we are so drawn to tangibility, and we like hard tables, and we like big mugs, and we like heavy watches because it feels heavy and real, and it kind of gives us this insurance that we're not in a simulation right now.
I mean, I'm thinking. I think of it as a new film, but it's not. Of course, it's an old film now. It's The Matrix, and you get these big towers of these basically batteries, which are human bodies. And they're just providing energy. Meanwhile, each body has got its own kind of reality going on somewhere else. So. Yeah, we think this table is real, but is it? It's.
That's an excellent question. Okay, last one.
Sure.
I'm going to shoot it off at a hip, and I don't know if this will make the cut, but could you hypnotize me so I stop smoking? Because I do have a bad habit of doing so.
Look, right here and now, we couldn't do it. It's not that we couldn't do it, it's not the right setup. So we need a certain environment for it.
I see.
Because we're kind of switching into a kind of a show environment. And even though you're far more familiar with this setup than I am, it probably wouldn't work.
Okay.
But what we could do, if you want to, is just to see whether a simple induction works, to see whether or not you can, and it's worth filming. The camera's rolling. We can just see what happens.
Okay, I'm open for that.
Okay, so I'll get you just to get comfortable in that chair, kind of sitting.
I'll probably take these off so it's more natural volume.
And just probably sit back in that chair and just close your eyes. And just start listening to the sounds in this room. And I can hear some sort of sound of air conditioning or something. Maybe some sounds coming from the street. But this is a room for sound recording, so it's pretty quiet. Now I want you to focus on your breathing. Just focus on your inhalation and exhalation. It's like a balloon expanding and then contracting. And you're in control of your breathing. Now what I want you to do, Luca, is to take 3 deep breaths, a nice big inhalation, hold it for a beat, and then a long, slow exhalation. And every inhalation, you're breathing in clean, positive energy. And every exhalation, you're breathing out any stress, any worry, fear, doubt, anything you don't need, don't want. And when those 3 breaths are completed, then just go back to that normal pattern of breathing. And just listen to my voice. My voice will help you and guide you to a deeper and special place. A place where things change for the better and change for the good. And now I want you to focus on your eyes. And just notice how good it feels to have them closed. That pleasant, heavy feeling of the eyelids shut, like they're made of lead. Now I want you to relax your eyes even more. I want you to relax your eyes to the point where they just don't work. Some people do this by imagining that their eyes become glued shut. you can do it any way you like. And when you're sure that your eyes are so relaxed that they don't want to open, they're not going to open. They just feel like they can't open. When you know that you've reached that level of relaxation, then go ahead and test them. That's right. And just let go. Trust your mind, trust your body. Just going deeper and deeper. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So something happened. We don't know what, but it's just that's an induction.
Wow. That was quite profound.
I could see that what doesn't lie is the breathing. So I was monitoring your breathing, and your diaphragm went quite quickly into deep parasympathetic kind of breaths.
That was very, very deep. I feel like I went somewhere completely different.
Well, that's good. Well, that's
about 2 minutes.
It shows you how quickly it can happen as well. So,
yeah. Especially when you asked me to open my eyes. I was like, oh, crap, it's not working.
Yeah, it's strange. It is a strange thing.
Yeah. Well, Tim, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
No, it's good. Thank you for inviting me.
Why don't you let the people know where to find you? I mean, do you have social media?
I don't. Maybe I do. I can't. I've got a Facebook page, but I'll send you that information.
Okay, I'll leave any links Tim leaves me down below. But you do have your own clinic if people would like to go and get hypnotized. Where is that based, and how can they get in contact with you?
George Street in Sydney CBD, opposite Wynyard Station.
Okay, beautiful.
And I'll send you a link to the website.
What's the clinic called?
It hasn't really got a name.
Okay.
It's just my business name is the Hypnosis Company.
Okay, beautiful. All right, guys, that's it. Very interesting episode today. Break from our regular scheduling. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have, thank you for smashing the subscribe button. I must still be in that trance, huh? Thank you for smashing the subscribe button. It goes a long way to help the channel. Promotes us in the algorithm, as evil as it might be. And we will see you next time.